and then saved quickly again from Aguero not long after. In the first half, Jamie Vardy hit the post for the Foxes. Leicester will also claim that they could have had one, maybe two penalties. That's something we can look back on in the post-match analysis. But ultimately, it's Manchester City that come away with all 3 points from this top-of-the-table clash. Jerry Taggart alongside us this evening on LCFC Radio. Jerry, your final summing up.
Yeah, disappointing end to the game, you have to say. But a thoroughly enjoyable game. Leicester City, moving in the right direction for me in this performance against Manchester City. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Last words of a fool, I suppose. But this was a game that you have to say it could have went the other way. Unfortunately for Leicester, it went the way of Manchester City with a clinical finish from Jesus, set up by ex-Leicester City player Riyad Mahrez. But a thoroughly enjoyable game.
Your final job, of course, Jerry, is to pick a Fox's man of the match.
Yeah, well, again, some really good performances today. James Maddison, for me, was, look back, someone near his best. Kasper Schmeichel, a couple of fantastic saves from him. Dennis Pratt filling in at centre, defensive midfield. But for me, the unsung hero of today, he just got substituted right in, Christian Fuchs. I thought from start to finish, he showed the way how to defend properly, how to put pressure on. And in possession of the ball, he was exemplary. So Christian Fuchs gets my man of the match.
Brendan Rodgers leading his Leicester players from the field and down the tunnel. I noticed Pep Guardiola get a firm hold of Jamie Vardy and have a quiet word in his ear before he left the field. Plenty more to come on LCFC Radio. We'll hope to hear from Brendan Rodgers. We'll hear a lot more from Jerry and the lads in the studio as we head over to Lewis.
Thanks a lot, John. Let's run through what else has happened in the Premier League today. The early kick-off finished Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. The 3 o'clocks were Burnley 3, Bournemouth 0, Crystal Palace 1, Newcastle 0, Sheffield United 1, Brighton 1, and Southampton 2, Aston Villa 0. Still plenty of football to be played this weekend, with Manchester United welcoming Watford to Old Trafford tomorrow. It's Wolves against Norwich, and Arsenal play Everton. And then on Monday, the league leaders Liverpool face West Ham at Anfield. So plenty more football to come this weekend in the Premier League. But for the next hour, we'll be talking all about Leicester City 0, Manchester City 1. Of course, we'd love you to get involved. Send your comments, your thoughts on the game, any questions for Matt Elliott, Jerry Taggart and Nev Folger as well. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter and on YouTube as well. So send your thoughts and we'll get through as many of them as possible. First though, Nev, let's get your final thoughts at full time. A 1-0 loss and probably, on balance, the best team won in the end?
Just about. I thought Manchester City were the better team in the second half. Their energy is unbelievable at times with the amount of running they do. I thought they were slightly fortunate to get a penalty through VAR, but Schmeichel made a great save from Aguero. Not the best of penalties, thank heavens. But at the finish, it was Mahrez, ironically, who set it all up. For the first time, really, Leicester allowed too much space in the midfield. Mahrez got through it, beat about 3 players, laid it on, and Jesus finished off nicely. I suppose the big question is if Vardy's shot in the 8th minute had found the bottom corner instead of the bottom of the post, would that have made a difference? And I think it might have. It might well have done. Until the goal came, I was going to say that a 0-0 draw probably was just about right, and it would have been one of the most entertaining 0-0 draws you'll ever likely to see. But at the end of the day, Manchester City just nipped it, and I think just about deserved to win. They just edged it for me in that second half.
Yeah, Surround's been in touch. Some missed chances, but some good positive work all over the pitch. Brian's talking about the penalty incidents. Kevin uses hands, no pen. Pratt does the same. Penalty given. He's trying to work that one out still, as I think a few of us are. Lee says, even though we lost, I thought it was a positive performance. Yeah, some positive moments shown by Leicester there, Jerry, but second half, City did use their kind of nous, didn't they? And they were more dominant.
Yeah, I think, when you look at in possession of the ball, I think you have to say Manchester City were more composed in possession of the ball. Especially, they were always probing. But you would expect that from a team of that calibre. I think when you analyse the game and you ask the question, where was the game won and lost, then you have to say it's in front of goal, clinical. If you wanted anyone to be in a position to get your team in front in a Leicester City shirt through one-on-one with a goalkeeper, you'd want it to be Jamie Vardy. And it was Jamie Vardy. And for whatever reason, he wasn't able to convert it. And on the flip side of that, you know, Jesus has a chance and he puts it away. And that's where the game was won and lost. Being clinical in front of goal. And you can't, and this is not a slight on Jamie Vardy or anybody else, that's the bare facts laid out on the table for you, is Man City were clinical when they needed to be. Leicester just weren't when they had the chance to be. And that's 0-0. I say we thought it would be a pretty evenly matched game. We knew Man City would have the lion's share, but as far as chances and everything else, it was a pretty even game. Leicester were always in it. They always, you know, were a threat. But in the end, the more composed team were and the more clinical team won the game. So you can't really, you know, make any argument one way or the other.
Yeah, let's take those two words, composure and clinical. Obviously, we get the clinical bit when you're in front of goal. The composure maybe was lacking for Leicester in that phase of play just before getting themselves in that position, especially second half. Yeah. They worked some nice areas, but just that final ball to set up that chance to be clinical was missing.
Yeah, the big difference for me was the composure. Manchester City rarely gave the ball away, you know, with a bad pass. Leicester too often in that second half gave the ball away at vital times when they needn't have done that. That was the big problem.
Well, it sort of summed it up right at the end there when Chilwell's down the left-hand side and he slips right at the vital moment. If he doesn't slip, Fernandinho comes sliding in. Ben has an opportunity just to flick that over him and he's away, he's through. He's behind Fernandinho and behind the Man City defence. But at that crucial second, and these all add up. Yep. People will think, oh, well, you know, it's the end of the game, he slips. But this was happening for all over the game. You know, this happened time and time again, where at the crucial moment, that's where they just let themselves down.
Yeah, Tielemans at times just gave the ball away when, you know, a simple pass. I don't know who it was, but right near the end, I mean, one of Leicester's defenders tried to backheel the ball in their own penalty area.
Yeah, that's
now,
right.
You can't do that, can you?
No.
You know, because A, you don't know where the ball's going. Yeah, you might have an idea that you're trying to pass it to, but you don't start backheeling the ball around in your own penalty area when you're under pressure. And the difference, I mean, I agree. I think that's been overall Leicester's best performance in a sense since the new year. I think they've played well.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And again, we're nitpicking, but if you want to know, if you're looking the difference between the two teams and why Man City are walking off the pitch with 3 points and Leicester are walking off the pitch with nothing in a game that was pretty evenly matched, and some people will be scratching their heads saying, have Leicester City lost that? That's why they lost it. That is it. There wasn't a lot in it. There's not a lot of, you know, the pick between the teams, but that was the small difference. I thought James Maddison, bucked that trend. I thought he was excellent, you know, in them little gaps with his passing and trying to set play up. But I think on the whole, in the danger areas where you need that final bit of quality to make the big difference, that's where it just didn't happen.
However, I think Man City, for the goal, for that big moment, were maybe just given the chance a little bit to make that happen. Yeah. We'll just have a couple of messages that have come in on that. Ian says, I think Roger set up the team very well. Good performances all over the pitch. However, I can't believe Mahrez was allowed to run 60 yards without a challenge, and that was the difference in the end. It was the first time that was allowed to happen with that much space, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I thought they defended brilliantly, and that's why I give Christian Fuchs man of the match, because he was the one that set the trend. How many times did he come out of his centre-half slot and go and put pressure on the ball? And you're right, it was the first time No one got close. He ran through them, but I think it was Dennis Pratt and Ben Chilwell. He just run through the centre of them. Somebody has to go and engage. Somebody has to force him to make that pass a lot sooner.
It was almost as though they switched off at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd had an attack themselves, if I recall.
Yeah, that's
Leicester.
right. Yeah.
And suddenly, I think they switched off. But Manchester City, at no stage in the game, ever switched off.
Well, it came from a Jamie Vardy cross.
That's right.
Jimmy Vardy's tried to find Harvey Barnes in the box. He's surrounded by 3 players. I thought he'd done exactly the right thing, Jamie. He had to play it with pace because he was looking for a needle in a haystack. Man City pick it up. I think I might have went out for a throw because I wasn't watching. I was jabbering then to John Dunn. And the next thing I know, the ball's in the back of the net. And then when I watched it on the replay, it's a case of the ball being shifted back over to Morris' side. He gets his head up. There's no pressure on the ball. No. He sees a gap. He takes the gap. Nobody comes and shuts him down. Now then, he's broke the lines. He's in at the back line. Once you're in at the back line with no pressure, all you can do as a defender is drop off until you decide to go and put pressure on the ball. You can't stand still. You have to drop off a certain degree to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row, that everybody's in the right position. But because there's no pressure on the ball, and then Jesus makes that run, that's what seals their fate.
Yeah, you mentioned Dennis Pratt when you were summing up the game as one of the standout performers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agreed with you on that, Tags. He'll be gutted that just that little bit of switching off in the position that he had made sure was really well covered throughout the whole game.
Absolutely. I thought he had an outstanding first half, Dennis Pratt, and I thought the second half, as much as anybody, he got involved. I mean, for once, we didn't really see that much tonight of De Bruyne in the sense of making Manchester City tick. And I think that was down to, Pratt and the midfielders. I thought Tielemans started the game well, but then he seemed to fall away a bit in the second half. But for me, Manchester City really did have a pep talk, I think, at half-time from Pep. And they almost stepped it up a gear in the second half. Leicester couldn't go better than what they were doing in the first half, and they just when Manchester City just stepped it up that little bit, Leicester couldn't go with them really. It was a case of sort of hanging on in there and hoping, but they made life that little bit easier for Manchester City just by soft little issues that Jerry's been talking about. Just giving the ball away when they shouldn't, switching off when they shouldn't. And the clinical side of it, I mean, Jesus had one chance and put it away. Vardy tonight had, perhaps 2.5 chances. I mean, I think he was very unlucky with the first one. It's difficult to criticise him, but I mean, Jerry's right, really, that if you're on a 1-against-1 with a goalkeeper and you get the ball past the goalkeeper, you should be scoring. But he's had a bit of unluck because the ball was swerving slightly, just hit the bottom of the post. Another night it might have hit the inside of the post and gone in. You're talking inches, and that's what's happened. But that if he'd have scored and given Leicester that start in the 8th minute, who knows what would have happened in the match.
Well, we saw what happened when we did that at the Etihad,
yes,
didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It stirred Man City up in the wrong way, so who knows?
Yeah.
Patricia says, think that Leicester City played well. We should have had a few goals, but alas, not to be. Played well, great save from Schmeichel from the penalty. Still up there at the top, and we all know it's tough at the top. Enjoyable game today. Deserved a point. Need to take our chances, says Joy, but VAR is a joke. No doubt we will be talking about that because many of you are getting in touch about that. Adam says we didn't deserve that, and Joe says nice to see the change in format, less messing around at the back. Bad luck, guys. A draw would have been fair, especially after the saved penalty. Talking about Leicester City messing around at the back, what I noticed from Manchester City today, and it was a way and a credit to the way Leicester played, saw a lot more long balls from Manchester City, which you're not used to seeing.
Yeah, I think, in his first season, Pep sort of refused to play the long ball. They got caught out for it, and then ever since they've brought Ederson in, he has a rocket of a left foot on him. It's an outlet for them as well, and I think Pep sort of realised that a long ball, or they like to call it a long pass now, is not a bad ball. it can turn into a good ball. So I'm not surprised. And also defensively, you've seen them hooking it away to safety more often than you probably would have done in the past. So that's all about the manager learning what the football culture is in different countries, because obviously in Spain, they kick very little out of play.
Yeah, lots of people getting in touch about, obviously, Iheanacho's contribution in the first half. Obviously, maybe could have had a penalty. We will come on to that a little bit later, but we don't want VAR to overshadow the show like it normally does. But Lee says Harvey Barnes gave us another dimension in the second half, because Iheanacho was doing a great job, but Harvey Barnes also made sure that maintained, even though it was a different type of format, maintained the flow that Leicester could have had.
No, absolutely. Going back to the Iheanacho incident, I thought it should have at least been sent upstairs or sent to Stockley Park.
Yeah.
That's the most
infuriating thing, isn't
That's
it?
the most infuriating thing, that it wasn't sent to Stockley Park and then let the VAR make his mind up on it. Whether it's a penalty is, we can all speculate. I thought it was.
I did.
But that's only my opinion.
Matt didn't.
Sorry?
Matt didn't.
Well, Matt wouldn't, would he? But he's not here to defend himself. So, but going back, I thought Kelechi, I thought he did well initially to get up, because he's taken 2 fists full on in the face. At pace, 2 forces running towards each other, bang, that hurts. So he's done well to get up. No surprise he went off at half time to protect him with head injury. And then I thought Brendan tactically got it spot on. Bring Harvey Barnes on. He's got pace. He's played there before and scored. He's in a rich vein of form in front of goal. Unfortunately, he played well, Harvey. Just didn't drop when we needed it to drop.
Absolutely.
Well, you have to say that Pep made a decision to bring on Otamendi and take off Laporte. Was that anything to do with Harvey Barnes, do you think? Because we saw very early in the second half, Barnes had a fair whack on him, didn't he? In terms of, the ball went down the line and Barnes was well ahead of Laporte.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think when Laporte went off, he went straight down the tunnel. So I don't know whether he was struggling. And then
he's had an injury, hasn't he?
Harvey sort of exploited that on 1 or 2 occasions, and obviously Pep's had to make a decision to change it. Normally, when you get substituted, the subs go and sit on the bench. I don't know what the full extent is, but
I suspect. I forget what the injury was, but he's had an injury.
Oh, he's had a bad injury.
Yeah, and it might be that he was feeling something and Pep wanted him off when he saw, as you saying, Barnes was skinning him really. So he made the change. I agree with you, Jerry. I think Barnes looked very good. And I'm not picking on Vardy tonight particularly, but there was a couple of times there where a decent ball would have put Harvey Barnes absolutely clear.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there was one time, I know exactly the one you're on about, where he's picked it up on the halfway line, and his first touch is brilliant, Jamie, and it sets him up to face in the right way to play that pass into Harvey. And he's done exactly the right thing, Jamie, apart from the execution of the pass. And that was the story of the game for Leicester, that final ball. It just didn't happen. And when it did happen, Jamie hits the post. So, but everything he did, everything about that move was absolutely textbook.
Brilliant. Yeah, it looked
apart
brilliant.
from the pass to Harvey.
Let's get on some people's messages coming in. Anne says, think we played well. Shame about the late goal and that VAR decision. Which one? Fortunately, doesn't change anything in the table. We will look at the Premier League table and how things stand in a little while. Adam says, week after week, Leicester are getting decisions wrongfully go against them. We could literally take legal action against them. No handball, but Pratt's was. Do me a favour. This is the one. We've talked about Iheanacho, but in terms of the handball on Kevin De Bruyne or potential handball from the free kick in the first half, not given, and then penalty given in the second half on Dennis Pratt. Aguero misses it, thankfully. No. But what's the difference there, Tags? Is it to do with this shadow thing?
I've got no problem with a penalty on Dennis Pratt. I really haven't. That is a penalty all day long. It really is. No one can argue the point or argue the case that is not a penalty. VAR's got that absolutely spot on. let's get that fact straight. As far as the Kevin De Bruyne incident is concerned, yes, his hands are in an unnatural position. Are they protecting his face? Yes. Should Kevin De Bruyne either take one in the face or should he duck out of the way? Probably the answer to that is yes. So there is a situation where you could ask, is that a handball? But even by me trying to explain it, there's too much.
Yeah.
There's too much grey area being thrown in there. Whereas Dennis Pratt is handball all day long.
Yeah, I'd agree. I thought Dennis Pratt's that penalty was a far more natural penalty, if you like, to give than the one on De Bruyne. But I think what needed to do was send it back for VAR. But, you know, I think there was
Again,
a genuine,
at least let them have a look at it. That's,
you know, I'm not.
I think that's probably the main. Where it should be the main issue is VAR hasn't looked at any of them.
No.
Any of the two incidents.
I mean, I agree. Again, I agree with you fully on the second penalty on Iheanacho. I mean, for me, you can keep looking at it, but for me, it was almost dangerous play from the goalkeeper.
Without a doubt.
You know, and dangerous play. If that had been another defender instead of the goalkeeper,
If that happens anywhere else on the pitch, it's a
free
foul.
kick.
And I mean, two defenders or two midfielders going
Yeah.
for a ball, one flicks it on and the other one takes him out. It's a free kick.
Absolutely.
So why is it not a penalty? Or why is it not a free kick inside the box?
I mean, as I say, if it had been a defender instead of the goalkeeper, it would have been a penalty. I think the referee would have just pointed straight to the spot. He'd have said dangerous play.
Yeah, defenders aren't really allowed to go out and punch.
No.
Strikers,
No,
But neither are keepers.
No.
They're allowed to use their hands to gather the ball,
Yeah.
but that doesn't give them license to go around punching people with two fists in the face.
Yeah, it was still dangerous play for me. Anyway, we could argue it all night. It wasn't given, so it doesn't count. But that's the problem, I think, that players have, managers have, and fans have with VAR. You know, it's not consistent.
It's one, as you said, you could talk on and on all day about. Lots of people getting in touch. Jim says, VAR is a joke. How is one a penalty and the other not? Well, Jerry Taggart's just given you your answer for that. So I guess the reason is unnatural from Pratt and more of a natural reaction from De Bruyne. If we to take it down to that's the reason.
Yeah, his natural reaction is to try and protect his face.
Does it? We're talking really, the speed of movement here is milliseconds, right?
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
the ball being hit. We're slowing things down and analysing.
You don't intentionally stand there. You normally protect another area of your body when you're stood in a wall. So
we're not on camera right now. What are you on?
Well, I don't want to say it, so I'm just giving you,
your bits.
The gesture.
There you go.
Yeah, your bits, yeah. And so that's the bit you try and protect it. And so you don't think that the ball's coming straight for your face. And when it does, you have to react, as you said, in milliseconds. And so the natural reaction is to put your hands up towards your face to protect them. So is that intentional? Whereas Dennis Pratt's is intentional. Dennis Pratt throws his arms out at the ball. And this is the bit that troubles me, is that everyone knows about VAR. Everybody knows that nobody can get away with anything anymore unless the referee, or unless it doesn't go. But if it goes to VAR, you're going to get found out. All the players know that, so why do it? You'll stick your head on it, that shot, if it's within range, or you leave it and hope that the keeper's got it covered. Unfortunately, with Dennis, he tried a sneaky one doing that, and you're not going to get away with that stuff anymore.
Armand says De Bruyne wasn't protecting himself. His head moved out of the way, but his hands stayed in front. Carl says, can't believe they can give a penalty against us and didn't give us the same penalty for the offence that happened first half with De Bruyne. It's going to be an argument that's going to go on and on and on.
This is it. I'm not saying that I'm right, or I'm just trying to give some sort of explanation why it wasn't given. I'm not saying that, the guys listening in haven't got a good point to make. But all I'm saying is we're trying to explain it, whereas no one's trying to explain Dennis Pratt's.
You do wonder now, the Premier League clubs are going to get together at the end of the season. I mean, is VAR here to stay based on what's gone on this season?
Some of the rules need to change for me.
I think I've always got a feeling that there might be an issue come up at the AGM of the Premier League clubs where they'll look to actually stop it again for next season and make sure certain things are sorted and tidied up. I
just think the rules have to change.
Yeah, the rules have to change.
The decision-making process is what's wrong with VAR.
Yeah.
VAR does its job. VAR doesn't get anything wrong. It tells you exactly what you want to see.
It was absolutely right for it on Aguero, wasn't it? On the offside.
Yeah.
But it was millimetres again. Yeah. Absolute millimetres.
But it's how VAR is interpreted by the people.
Correct.
Or who makes the rules and says, when this happens, this is the decision. That's what's wrong with VAR.
Can I tell you the rules? I've got them.
Go on then.
Handball. The following handball situations, even if accidental, will be a free kick. Assuming if it's in the box, it will be a penalty.
Yeah.
The ball touches a player's hand, arm, which hasn't made their body unnaturally bigger. Dennis Pratt's does make him unnaturally bigger. De Bruyne's doesn't, because it's in front of his face, isn't it? The ball touches a player's hand or arm when it's above their shoulder. De Bruyne's is above his shoulder.
Yeah.
Unless the player has deliberately played the ball, which then touches their hand. That's getting into other things. But judging by that, it should be a penalty.
There you go.
Who knows? I'll tell you what, let's hear from Brendan Rodgers.
Well, Brendan, a narrow 1-0 defeat. What's your assessment of that?
Well, disappointment, naturally, because I thought we deserved something from the game. Everything I asked the players to do, they were amazing, in terms of defensively, the pressing when they could, and then when they had to defend. I can't believe we didn't get a penalty. And it's like I said, it's probably the reason why VAR was brought in. Kevin De Bruyne has his hands up, he's blocking his face. All the other players are jumping with their hands down, and it hits his arm. And if you see the flight of the ball, it's heading towards the goal. So for me, it was a clear penalty. But yeah, I thought that, of course, towards the end of the game, because you've been chasing the ball for longer than what we normally are, but then just that little bit of tiredness set in, and then Mahrez was able to get through so easy, and it leads to them getting the winning goal. But the players gave everything in the game, playing against a top team, and everything I said about the fight, the pressing, the aggression, and that was much more like us.
Has that added to your disappointment then, the belief that you had that Leicester should have had a penalty in that first half, or at least one in the first half? Yeah,
and not only that, I thought we got into some really, really good areas and should score or find a better pass. So those are the elements of this team that need to improve in the bigger games as such. But you certainly, abiding by the rules, you're looking for that help. And like I said, it was a clear penalty. It was a shot that was going on target, and I felt that we should have had that.
Norwich away up next, and obviously then 11 games left in the Premier League. Still a heck of a lot of positives to take into those games. Yeah.
No, like I said, from tonight, I'm very pleased with the team in terms of their attitude in the game. I was disappointed when we played Manchester City early and the Liverpool game here, but that was much more like, because there was much more intent, much more aggressive, and then that bit of quality from them wins in the game. But no, a lot of positives from us from the game. We need to get better in certain areas, but that's why we're here, over time to develop and improve. But the players gave everything, and like I say, we were unfortunate to lose out in the end.
And a return for Matty James as well at the end there, which was a fantastic moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's worked so hard. We were obviously really down on our midfield players, but he's worked ever so hard. Been a long, long road for him, and now he's been training for a long period, fitness-wise. And like I said, he's had some games. So for him to get in, Dennis was superb, tiring a bit towards the end, so we wanted to put some fresh legs on for that last period. And of course, they then scored. And I always feel Matty, with his football ability, he can maybe make a pass for us. But it was great for him to get on the field.
Leicester boss Brendan Rodgers there talking to LCFC Radio's Dan Bates. Right then, we're going back to the penalty, sorry. Yeah. Brendan says penalty all day long for the handball from De Bruyne. He didn't even mention the Ederson one.
Yeah, well, there you go. Who am I?
It's all a game of opinions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've given my opinion and Brendan's given his, and he's the manager. He probably knows the rules better than most, so I've got no reason, you know, to go against what Brendan says. If that's the rules, you've explained the rules. If he brings it up over his shoulder, his hands, then that's a penalty.
Tim says, VAR spoils another game, thought Leicester deserved something. Well, let's be clear. Actually, the key moment, that didn't actually affect the score because penalty saved in terms of Aguero. In terms of the overall game, Matt, would you say it was the fair result tonight? Oh, we've been joined by Matt Elliott, by the way.
Yeah, I'm back again. Leicester had a game plan, didn't they, really? They changed their normal way of playing. Obviously, the system was adapted to sort of combat and negate Man City rather than exploit them. But they always had that semi-threat, at least, with Vardy and Barnes at times, you know, over the top, in behind. It was a bit more primitive than normal, I would say, than their normal style of play. But they worked hard, didn't they? You know, a lot of people in the change rooms would be frustrated with the effort they put in, and just to switch off pretty much just that once, really. You know, good play by Mahrez, an excellent finish, but I think there were 2 or 3 areas that Leicester could have shored that situation up. But, you know, to work so hard for so long, come so close to getting a point, and then Schmeichel with the heroics, a couple of good saves, one of them a penalty, and you think maybe they deserve to grind a point out of this. But I think Man City have also got a good case to say of the 2 teams. They were slightly more inventive, or, you know, and missed opportunities. But it was a tight affair, wasn't it? It was a tight affair, for sure. Fine lines between it, but you always felt the longer it went on, probably Man City were the likelier to score, although it did look like 0-0, really, didn't it?
Yeah.
It didn't look like there was too much in it.
Yeah, you say that. Wayne says, a bit of realism needed with a 3rd or possibly 4th best team in England, and that's where we're at, 3rd. So we need to understand that we're not better than Man City, and that's a fact. But the great thing about tonight's game is we weren't too far off.
No, absolutely. And again, you know, you listen to Brendan's post-match interview about being able to find that final pass.
Yeah.
That's where we have to improve.
Definitely.
That is that game in a nutshell for me. And we've talked about it, clinical, composure. When Leicester needed to be composed and clinical, they just couldn't find it. End of.
Yep. And Brendan Rodgers sort of echoed what Jerry was saying earlier, and myself in a way. That final ball was the one that they couldn't quite produce. I mean, they played some beautiful passes around the place, and then when it came to the clinical moment of finally getting one man through, apart from the very early on in the game when they played it for Vardy, they couldn't make that final ball, which Manchester City could. You know, somehow it got intercepted, or they slipped, or whatever. But they couldn't quite make that final ball where it would have given them another opportunity to have scored.
Jerry, we're going to let you go. Thank you for your time today.
Pleasure as always.
On the way, we'll hear from Dennis Pratt. Also, if you're just joining us and you missed some of the action, we'll hear the highlights from today's game. But first, let's find out what happened elsewhere.
This is the classified football results check for Saturday, the 22nd of February, starting with the Premier League. Burnley 3, Bournemouth 0. Chelsea 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Crystal Palace 1, Newcastle United 0. Sheffield United 1, Brighton & Hove Albion 1. Southampton 2, Aston Villa 0. Sky Bet Championship, Barnsley 1, Middlesbrough 0. Birmingham City 3, Sheffield Wednesday 3. Brentford 2, Blackburn Rovers 2. Bristol City 0, West Bromwich Albion 3. Charlton Athletic 3, Luton Town 1. Leeds United 1, Reading 0. Nottingham Forest 0, Queen's Park Rangers 0. Preston North End 2, Hull City 1. Stoke City 2, Cardiff City 0. Swansea City 3, Huddersfield Town 1. Wigan Athletic 1, Millwall 0. League 1, AFC Wimbledon 0, Blackpool 0. Accrington Stanley 1, Rotherham United 2. Fleetwood Town 1, Portsmouth 0. Ipswich Town 0, Oxford United 1. Lincoln City 0, Gillingham 0. Milton Keynes Dons 1, Bolton Wanderers 0. Rochdale 1, Coventry City 2. Shrewsbury Town 1, Doncaster Rovers 0. Southend United 2, Burton Albion 3. Sunderland 3, Bristol Rovers 0. Wycombe Wanderers 3, Tranmere Rovers 1. League 2, Carlisle United 2, Morecambe 2. Cheltenham Town 1, Mansfield Town 0. Crawley Town 2, Stevenage 0. Crewe Alexandra 2, Macclesfield Town 0. Leyton Orient 2, Oldham Athletic 2. Newport County 2, Bradford City 1. Northampton Town 2, Exeter City 0. Plymouth Argyle 0, Cambridge United 0. Salford City 1, Colchester United 2. Scunthorpe United 1, Forest Green Rovers 0. Swindon Town 3, Grimsby Town 1. Walsall 2, Port Vale 2.
Welcome to King Power Stadium, where the weather might be wet and wild, but it hasn't put off the Blue Army making the pilgrimage to King Power Stadium to witness yet another top-of-the-table clash at their home stadium. The halfway line to Laporte, and then it's won back by Tillemans, and alongside Iheanacho they're trying to win it back again, and Vardy could be clean through. It is Jamie Vardy off the post and rolls to Ederson, who can get Manchester City back in possession. Ricardo, edge of the 18-yard area, now De Bruyne goes square to Mahrez, who's drifted in from the right and takes strike, and it needs a good save from Schmeichel. Diving to the right side, palming the ball away, and the first strike from Manchester City in real anger comes from their former favourite Riyad Mahrez. Kyle Walker bursting down the right side, it's a ball into Aguero, it's a lovely layoff to Gundogan, and it's a save by the feet of Schmeichel before Evans can head clear. Manchester City just easing their way through the Leicester defence. It's Maddison, right-footed shot that Ederson needed to make a good save from, tipping the ball around the post. It's a Leicester corner, and it was close to a Leicester goal with a whipped free kick from James Maddison. Feeds it to Fuchs, then Maddison, 30 yards out, chips one in towards Iheanacho, and it's a corner. Leicester may be looking for more because Ederson took out Iheanacho as the ball was floated over the top.
That's a penalty. That's a penalty.
It's a strange one, and we will restart in the corner. Johnny Evans and Kaglar Soyuncu are summoned to the penalty area. Johnny Evans, the former Manchester United defender, but Tillemans has given the ball away. Rodri, De Bruyne, the left-hand side, onto his right foot, good save Schmeichel. What a strong right hand that was. A shot that was hit with some power. Schmeichel sticking out a right hand. Riyad Mahrez to deliver the corner. It's a floaty ball in that Soyuncu heads clear. Gundogan strikes, deflected. Another corner, but Manchester City surround the referee. Every outfield player in front of Paul Turney asking for a penalty. All eyes on the referee, it's a penalty. Sergio Aguero, saved by Kasper Schmeichel, to his right, and thumps the ball away. Aguero is denied that goal, and we are all square still at King Power Stadium. Maddison to deliver this Leicester City corner, whipped in. Ederson punching close to his goal line. Cleared as far as Ricardo. Chipped towards Vardy on the volley, wide of the goal. Seemed to be caught sweetly enough, and depending what angle you were looking at that, it felt as though it had gone into the net, but it did fall wide with Barnes. Midfield to Maddison, great quick feet from Maddison to evade Bernardo Silva, then finding Ricardo on this near side, left-footed ball down the line for Harvey Barnes, and he's gone away from Fernandinho, and it's into Ricardo, 6 yards out. His strike deflected away off a diving Nicolas Otamendi, got himself in front of the shot. Mahrez has gone on some run here, and he's teed up Jesus, who finds the net. Assisted by Mahrez, the former Leicester favourite, who ran from more or less the halfway line. And then as he got to the 18-yard line, he fed the ball to the substitute Jesus on the right side. He's fired it beyond Kasper Schmeichel. He scores again against Leicester City. His 17th goal of the season sees a breakthrough at King Power Stadium, and it's the visitors in second that take the lead against the hosts in third.
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
So Man City take the points at King Power Stadium. Leicester City 0, Manchester City 1. We will hear from Dennis Pratt very shortly. He gave an impressive display this evening. Matt, we've just been talking about penalties again. Funny that. You say you want to change your mind now, do you?
I don't know.
Half time, you said no penalties. None of them were penalties.
I missed the main part of what Brendan was saying. If that's technically correct, if you lift your hands above your shoulder,
that's what I said.
In front of your face,
finding it.
You know, if that's a definitive ruling, then it does make me change my mind. Yeah, because his hands were above his shoulder line. I thought you'd be able to protect your face, if anything, rather than your chest or privates or whatever.
I was going to say that was what Jerry didn't say about protecting, did he?
Yeah.
Not your face.
Well,
Jerry had got other things in mind.
You do protect your essentials, and then you can always head the ball or turn your head to the side. So I think it was very weak defensive play by De Bruyne, and so putting your hands in front of your face. And it was slightly to the right as well. It wasn't like he was getting it slap bang in the mush, was it? It was, coming to the side of his head. So his hands were to the side, and then I said probably not enough for a penalty at half time. After the game, with the ruling change taken into consideration, and the fact that Dennis Pratt's was similar but different, if you know what I mean. Dennis Pratt's his arms are raised and he's come out, but it's a little bit too far from his body. You can see why the penalty's given. Those sort of situations, neither of them naturally feel like enough to give a penalty. But there's got to be a cut-off point somewhere where people... Dennis Pratt shouldn't put his hands there. De Bruyne shouldn't have put his hands where they were.
Then again, De Bruyne's didn't get actually taken to VAR, did it?
No, that's the weird thing. It didn't even get looked at. And similarly with the Iheanacho one.
No.
It's got to be looked at because that was a contentious issue. And, what you make of it, I suppose, just sort of puts more into the melting pot. But it's got to be looked at for definite. Right, no more VAR chat after we have heard from Dennis Pratt.
Well, Dennis, a disappointing end to the game, unfortunately, that wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I think we played a good game. We had a very good organisation against that team, and if you concede at the end of the game a goal, it's hard to take because I think we also had some very good chances to score. So it's tough to take.
Obviously, the result is tough to take, but as a performance, how pleased were you as a group?
Yeah, I think we did well. We planned it really well. The organisation was really good. We didn't concede too many chances, I think. So all worked out well. But of course, at the end, we get this goal against, and it's a pity.
On another day, that there were a couple of chances that could have gone in. Obviously, hitting the post, maybe could have had a couple of penalties as well in the first half. I guess that must add to the disappointment.
Yeah, like I said, we had our chances to score one or more goals, and maybe sometimes our last pass wasn't quite as it had to be. But even with that, we had good chances to score.
How did you rate your personal performance today?
Yeah, it was okay. Of course, it was a lot of defensive work. It was my first time that I play as a number 6. But I think I did my defensive work, and I was happy to get minutes.
There's still an awful lot of games, a lot of points to play for, and another competition in the FA Cup, of course. So a lot to play for still this season.
Yeah, of course. We want to keep our position that we have now, and starting from next week, we're gonna get the points again.
There we go, Dennis Pratt talking to LCFC Radio's Dan Bates there. Anthony says Pratt was our best midfield player today. He did have a good game in there, and quite clearly from what he says, he just wants to do the job for the team. First time he's played that position, and he did so admirably.
I thought he was outstanding. Jerry's man of the match was I forget. Oh, Christian Fuchs. And I wouldn't argue with that either. Really, I think he had a good game as well. But for me, Dennis Pratt, I thought had a terrific game, considering it's not his normal role. I thought he did a good job, and he was the one I think who did enough to stop De Bruyne really putting an influence on the game. I mean, you couldn't ever say that De Bruyne was the real danger man tonight for Manchester City. I think they were just better all told, Manchester City, eventually in the second half, not so much in the first half. But for me, Dennis Pratt did enough tonight, I think, to keep his place in the team. So it's up to Brendan Rodgers then to decide, is this the right shape for the team to going forward, or was it just done tonight because it was Manchester City? But watching it, I quite liked the way it was shaped tonight, and I just wonder whether he might look at that and think, yeah, that might be the way going forward. But you're not sure, Matt?
I don't think he'll stick with that long term. No, I think his preferred way is 4-3-3. Barnes and Vardy and another on the right hand side, Perez, whoever it may be. I think that's his first approach. But then he likes to have that flexibility, doesn't he? And they slotted into that system today, that strategy really comfortably, didn't it? It looked like they were tried and practiced at it. In terms of the game plan, they almost executed it to a T, really. But it just didn't come off in terms of switching off that once. Okay, the penalty save was Michael, but then, like you said, the execution of that final ball, that final pass, which is, that is the game-changing situations. That is the crucial factor, with top-class teams. That,
mind you, it's interesting.
They are capable of it because they've done it earlier this season, like a higher ratio of success. But just against some of the top players, they're a little bit cleverer as well. They read situations better.
Yeah.
Although
that's one thing Dennis Pratt was very good at, the reading of the game today.
You can see he's an intelligent player. Whatever position he plays in, he's always looking around him, assessing the situation. He's quite robust and quite mobile in terms of he covers a lot of the pitch. Decent technique. He's got an eye for a pass. He likes to strike a goal. I think he's got a good all-round game, and he's very adaptable. Yeah. I think he played. He said it's the first time he played number 6. So I think he played there against Newcastle in the Cup.
Yeah, I've seen him play defensively.
And he was pinging it around and dictating and running the show. And I thought to an extent, I wouldn't say he ran the show today, but he was a huge influence there in the middle of the park. Yeah.
It was interesting. Brendan Rodgers in that interview that we heard not so long ago. His reason for that Mahrez break, which led to the late goal, was that for the first time a bit of tiredness had set in after all the chasing that Leicester had to do, chasing the Manchester City players around. And I think he was probably right. It looked as though we say they switched off, which I think they did a little bit. Because the attack had come from Leicester, but you could tell there was a little bit of tiredness in that midfield area that Mahrez just saw a space and went through. Yeah, must have run 50 or 60 yards.
Wasn't it? I think Chilwell got caught in two minds, whether to stick or twist, and probably took the wrong option and reacted too late. And then it was a gaping hole there where you'd expect the midfield to shore that up, really. But even then, when Mahrez broke through towards the centre halves, I don't know where Fuchs had gone. I'd have to see it again. I'm not sure where he was. But Johnny Evans, for me, ordinarily, if it was a back four, Evans would have shifted over and gone with a run with Jesus, and Soenchu would have come across and tried to deal with Mahrez, at least gone and pressured. But it was Evans who went to the ball with Mahrez. He felt he had to commit. And in doing so, I mean, it's a lovely ball from Mahrez and got a well-timed run. But they're all a bit lopsided, and there was that big gaping hole that ultimately cost them the game.
Talking about Riyad Mahrez, of course, we saw exactly what he's capable of during his time at Leicester City. We certainly saw it at the Etihad earlier this season as well. What have you made of him since going to City from what you've seen, Nev?
I think he's done very well for Man City. I think they feel they've, it was money well spent, and it was big money for Leicester City as well. And I think he's been a success for them. He hasn't been left out of the team too many times. He's scored a few goals. He's created a few goals. I thought, to be fair, tonight, I thought Leicester had dealt with him pretty well. They, especially in the first half, he had a lot of the ball, but there was nothing really dangerous that came from him. They managed to get enough men to intercept, and it's just that it was that one break that we're talking about where he's gone through them and laid on with a terrific pass. And that was what Leicester was lacking, that final ball. Yeah. We've said that. But Mahrez's final ball put Jesus through as he had the one chance and he's put it away. And again, that was clinical. I mean, he took the goal well.
I thought Mahrez he looked a good player tonight.
Oh, he is a good player, yeah.
I'd agree with Nev. Like, they did deal with him quite well, but only just.
Yeah.
There was a sort of
2 or 3.
little bit of a sharp intake of breath every time the ball went to Mahrez, as well as a boo and a groan. Yeah. But, I mean, he had the shot, didn't he? It's Michael save first half. He put a beautiful ball into Silva from the right-hand side, just dinked it into his forward run. Miscontrolled, didn't make the most of it. Silva, he looks like in his pomp at Leicester, in and out. But at the same time, Leicester did half a job on him as well. So he went quiet, didn't he, up until for the majority of the second half, and then until he popped up with that bit of quality that decided the game.
Well, he's a quality player.
I thought it was a bit harsh. I understand why. I thought it was a bit harsh booing him.
Yeah.
To the extent they did. I know some of it's probably tongue-in-cheek a little bit.
Yeah, fans do, though, don't they?
I know, but I know like, how he left wasn't ideal, and he's moaned that he wasted time, etc. But come on, without him, you didn't win the Premier League.
Nah, absolutely.
You got to be mindful of that at least, haven't you?
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the Premier League table then. Leicester City still in third position. Man City have drifted away from Leicester, though, 7 points ahead. They're on 57. Leicester have 50. Chelsea, they're in fourth with 44. And Tottenham, they're in fifth with 40. So a 10-point gap between Leicester and Spurs. It could be a 9-point gap should Manchester United beat Watford, because they will then move into that fifth place on 41 points. But things still looking good for Leicester City. And next up is a team who are going to be fighting hard. Actually, the next few games for Leicester against sides who are down maybe the wrong end of the table. Norwich next. Then you've got the likes of Villa and Brighton on the horizon too. Yeah,
it's still a very healthy position, isn't it? I think. But the way the form's gone of late, I don't think it's too much of a surprise that Leicester have stuttered to an extent. And I think there was some way towards finding their way back today. It was good, as Dennis Pratt mentioned, organisation, the spirit was there, the good mentality, execution just missing a little bit. But they've come through a barrel load of fixtures, a lot of them very tough fixtures, in 3 different competitions. 10-9 points possibly tomorrow ahead of the required rivals, and that's a decent position to be in, isn't it? The 9-10 points now doesn't seem that massive, because it used to be 14, but if it had been 5 points and then you opened it up to 9, you think you're gone. So look, put a positive spin on it. Would have been a big point tonight, to be honest. That's 7 points from Man City now. You're like,
I think they deserved
sort of unattainable.
I think they actually deserved a point
it couldn't
tonight,
begrudge them, could you?
In a way.
But they've got these games coming up there.
Correct.
They'll be delighted to get through this period of tough games with that 9-10 point advantage.
Well, Lewis and I...
Lots to play for.
Yeah, we were talking about the next 4 games, I think, Lewis, weren't we? It was Norwich, Brighton, forget the cup tie. I mean...
Norwich, Villa, Watford, Brighton.
Right, yeah. Now...
Each hard games in their own right.
They're hard games because of their position in the table, but they are, from Leicester's point of view, they must look at them and think, well, they're winnable. Now, I'm not going to suggest they're going to win all 4 and get 12 points, But
Why
if they
might do.
Well, they might well do, hopefully.
Yeah.
But if they get 9 or 10 points from those 4 games, it's going to be an interesting. I think that gap will have opened even more if they pick up 9 or 10 points from the next 4 games.
We shall see. Brian says 11 games left and we sit in a terrific position. March on. On we march. Nev, thanks for your time. Matt,
Pleasure.
you too.
Welcome.
A defeat for Leicester today, but they're back in action pretty soon. Friday night against Norwich, and we will see you starting with the pre-match pint and full coverage here on LCFC Radio. Have a good week.
For more in-depth analysis, reaction and extended highlights, head to lcfc.com.